Hello, I would like to welcome all our participants for the last webinar of 2021 from USB certification. And we will be talking about what Textile Exchange and GOTS brought to the new edition for transaction certificates in the 3.0 version. I would like to remind you that the webinar recording and the slides will be shared with you after this event through your email addresses. So I would like to introduce myself. My name is Ali Ertuğrul. I'm Technical Manager for Textile Department in USB certification. I graduated with an environmental engineering degree and took part in national and international laboratories. And I'm currently fulfilling this position. So the first thing that I would like to show you is the references, the reference documents that we use, that these rules that we will show you are based on. You see Textile Exchange and GOTS in adjacent columns. The reason for that is mapped one-to-one. So ASR 104 is mapped to policy for transaction certificates 3.0 of GOTS. So that means these documents are harmonized. Apart from certain differences, most of the rules will be applicable for both standards. And towards the end of this webinar, we will be showing you what is different in GOTS in a couple of slides. And also one key thing that I would like to remind you is that if you have any questions, please write them down in the chat box, and we will have a Q&A at the end of this session. And I'll try to answer your questions. The first thing that I like to go over is the data submission part. So with this new edition, I would like to introduce Textile Exchange's central database system, DTrackit. So it was in pilot phase, it's completed, and certain data will be started to be submitted by certification bodies digitally to their servers in January 1st, 2022. And full data submission will start in April 1st, 2022. GOTS have their own version of this database system called Global Tracebase, which is still in development. So there will not be any data submission to their servers, but we will be manually sending the data. So all data shall be submitted to Textile Exchange service. That is required by this ASR 104 rule guidance document. That's the first thing. And whatever, some of this data will not be required to be issued on the printed transaction certificate. So which means that we will be receiving the data. Some of will require your approval to be shown on TC. And we have a table that we will show towards the end of this webinar, which actually will clarify the picture for you, and everything will be submitted according to ASR 504 certification body data specifications. So I'd like to start this webinar by saying the exceptions to transaction certificates. In which conditions the TCs, the transaction certificates, shall not be issued. So if you have a site that is the main unit or any other site that is under common ownership with the main unit, which means they are listed in the table 1 of the scope certificate, then there is no requirement for a transaction certificate. To be clear, you cannot apply for a transaction certificate between the sites in the scope certificate. It's the same between site and subcontractors that are listed under a scope certificate. That would be associated subcontractors that are listed in table 2 of the scope certificate, or independently certified subcontractors listed in the table 3 of the scope certificate. So there's not going to be any issuance of transaction certificates between these sites. So another key exception is that certified brands are not required to request outgoing transaction certificates. So a brand would be the last point of stop, which is meaning that the final product is already created. There's no modifications, alterations, no repacking, no repackaging. Everything stays the same. Then there's no need for TC. But if brands want to do so, they still can apply. And as long as it's a valid and full application, we as certification bodies have to take their request. When we come to GOTS, TCs are not required for sales or transfer of products between wholly owned subsidiaries. So that's a difference between Textile Exchange GOTS if they are included under the same parent company's scope certificate, provided that products are not repacked, relabeled, processed by or on behalf of the subsidiary companies. The parent company shall document all ownership changes. So even if you don't apply for a TC, we should still be able to trace all the physical location changes and or ownership changes between your sites and your subcontractors. So you should be keeping the official documents, the transportation documents, or any associated invoices with them. So if you look at the timelines for transaction certificates, Textile Exchange actually diverges from the previous practice. The previous practice was that if the earliest shipment date in a transaction certificate was older than 90 calendar days, then 180 calendar days, which was about 6 months, then we as certification bodies were accepting them with a risk analysis. If it was newer than 6 months, then as long as we receive a full and complete application, we have to issue them. This has changed. So 90 calendar days, we have to issue them up to 90 calendar days. Up to 180 days, we can still issue them according to our risk, the outcome of our risk analysis. If the earliest shipment is older than 6 months during the time or the date of the TC application, then we cannot accept those TCs. We are actually not allowed to issue any TCs for anything older than 180 days. Another key change is that if a scope certificate expires or withdrawn in the next 30 days after the expiration or withdrawal date, we have to issue transaction certificates where the shipment dates were actually on or before the expiration date of that scope certificate. The change is that we still can issue those TCs according to our risk analysis up to 90 days, but after 90 days, after 3 months, we are not allowed to issue any more TCs. So that's a key change as well that you should take a note of. There is some standardization in the data formats. This is harmonized between Textile Exchange and GOTS as well. So ASR 213, materials, processes, and products classification, which is also harmonized with GOTS. Use the terminology that you use during your TC applications to certification bodies for each material, each raw material you define, each process you define, or each product you define. It falls under one of the predefined categories that is mentioned in this document. And if it doesn't fit, then we still can apply to Textile Exchange or GOTS and to see if it can be accepted and it can as a user-specific term. Geographic designations are standardization of the country, area, state, provinces. So any address, any origin of raw material, etc., any kind of place where you need country, area, state, or province information, it should be complying with the ASR 214, or as it's called in GOTS, the GOTS geographical classification document. Date formats are according to ISO, which is 4-digit year, 2-digit month, and 2-digit date format. The number format is also standardized, which means the thousand separator will be comma and decimal separator will be a dot symbol. So you still can have multiple shipments in a transaction certificates, and they are all sold to the same buyer, same corporation. In box 3, you can have up to 100 shipments and up to 1,000 unique products in a single TC. Raw material origin, this is different from GOTS. In GOTS, you have to have the origin of raw materials from first processor to the final product in each TC. In Textile Exchange, it's a phase-in transition. So by July 1st, 2022, transaction certificates with empty raw material origin will not be accepted. So every raw material shall have their geographical origin defined at all times. By January 1st, 2022, some of the previous rules apply, meaning that in first processor stage, geographical origin information will be collected, and every collected information after January 1st, 2022 shall be forwarded to the next TC in the output TC. So if you receive geographical origin information as a certification body, then we are bound to state the exact same origin in the next TC that uses this raw material. If it comes in empty, then we are actually declaring that we have received this empty, and that's how we forward it. So there's going to be a declaration in there. So before we come to the template, I'd like to let you know that each certification body has a designated 3-letter abbreviation where you see as like CB dash, the B1.2.1. So instead there, USB has a designation of USB. So it will be USB dash. So each certification body's transaction certificate would start with their designation. Another key information is that rightfully so, the producers declare that they don't want to reveal the identity of their suppliers. So anything that can potentially reveal the identity of their suppliers will not be mentioned in the TC. So usually it's in the input TC, and in some TC formats, they can use the seller's ID. It can be a uniquely designated site number designated by the certification body. So it's actually revealing information like which TCs belong to which suppliers. So that's not the case anymore. So this practice is discontinued. What you see is the new template of the transaction certificates, and it comes in 3 parts. It comes in 3 parts. The first, you can see it as 3 sections, and some of these sections, I'm terribly sorry about that. I think one of our participants interfered with the screen, so we'll just remove them. Okay, we'll continue. all sections can actually span multiple pages. So let's take a look at them one by one. In the first section, you have the box number 1, certification body information. You have the information for the seller of the products, the buyer of the products, box number 4 to box number 6, the weight of the products. You will have mandatory declarations, and you have certified input information. In the second section, you have the shipments and certified products. In the third part, you have certified components, which is an extension of certified products, and we will go into detail for. You have the raw material and origin information. And the last box would be declarations part, which is by the seller, which means by the you. So let's go into the first one. As you will see, as a certification body, our name, our address, and our licensing code in this section. In the seller part, you will see the legal name of seller. Whoever issues the invoice, whatever corporation, their name will come in there. You see the address information. And if the legal seller is any site that is apart from the main unit in a scope certificate, then selling on behalf of title becomes visible, and you declare the legal name of certified organization, which is what we call the scope holder for the main unit. Whatever corporation is listed in the first page of a scope certificate, their name will come over here. Otherwise, it will be, if the main unit is the one who issued the invoice, their name will be listed in the legal name of seller part. Otherwise, it's not visible. In any given case, the scope certificate number and the license number of the scope holder will be listed over here. Another key change. So non-certified traders are not required to be certified if they fulfill certain conditions, and they become non-certified trader. So what are these conditions? If they are a trading company, doesn't have any physical location, and for each of their transactions, they buy from company A and they buy to company B, and the products are shipped from company A's physical location to company B's physical location. There is no change in quantity or nature of the goods in any circumstances. There's no alteration, modification, anything. So the goods just go from A to B as they are. In that case, they can be just name checked, just be listed as non-certified trader, meaning that they don't have to have scope certification certificates anymore. In that case, company A, which is the seller, the original seller of the products, will make the TC application. So they will be providing at least one shipment document that proves that it goes from company A to company B, and 2 invoices proving that they sold to trading company and trader company sold to company B. They will request that invoice from the trader that they are selling to. In the buyer part, it's pretty much the same. The scope certificate information is missing, as you may notice. Legal name of the buyer is either the main unit or one of the sites that are under the same common ownership that are listed in the table 1 of the scope certificate with the buyer. So whoever the invoice is issued to legally is the legal name of buyer. And it's the same for the buyer address as well. If the buyer is different from the scope certificate holder, then buying on behalf of becomes visible and legal name of certified organization is listed. Whoever the main unit under that common ownership is comes over here. In any given case, license number is listed under here. So you have the total gross shipping weight, which includes the packaging and everything. You have the net shipping weight, which is gross shipping weight minus the packaging, and certified weights, the weights of the claimed material for each standard. So it can be a multi-standard TC, then you will see more than one standard name over there. Number format is according to the new number format, just like to point it out. So in the declarations part, the first thing that you'll notice is that you're declaring to have the certified products according to the standards that are listed in the title of the transaction certificate. If there is any organic farming standards, which is the case in OCS or GOTS, then you're declaring that it's recognized by the list of IFOAM standards that are listed under ASR 213. You still have the declaration for the United States Department of Agriculture National Organic Program. So if it complies with the rules of USDA NOP or not, that's still a mandatory information. But what is optional is that you can choose to list the additional organic farming standards, regulations, or not. So if you like to declare them, or if your buyer wants you to declare them, this would be the place to do so. Certification body of products are complying with content claim standards. That's another declaration that you have to make. So when it comes to certified inputs, there are 4 different sections. Input TCs are mandatory except OCS first processors, and also if for RCS and GRS recyclers who received the material, the raw material with a material declaration form, then they are not required to declare an input TCs, as there isn't. If it's an OCS first processor or GOTS, then you have to declare farm scope certificates over here, and for applicable cases, not all regulations have transaction certificates on a farm level. You have to declare them over here. And if there is any trader in between a ginning site and or a farm site, then the transaction certificate will be listed over here. When you go to the second section, you have the shipments part. So the first thing that you will notice is that there's sequential number that is given by the certification body. So that number is given by the automated system of the certification bodies. It's just a unique number that identifies the shipment within that TC. So that will be the shipment number 1, as it will be referenced in other parts of the document. You have the shipment date over here. These are all the information that we receive from you. Now you have to manually or automatically enter them during the applications. You have the shipment document number, gross shipping weight, and all the numbers of invoices. So if it is more than one, you are going to be listing them over here. So physically receiving location, so consignee name and address will be listed over here. Again, according to the harmonized geographical classification system. So it's per shipment. That was not the case before. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. The buyer arranges transportation from the seller's facility. Then in that case, the seller's facility is listed as the consignee. So these are kind of like the odd cases where you may not have an idea of how to list the consignee and address. In this case, the seller arranges transportation to a port. Then in that case, if the buyer is picking up from the port, then the port address is written in the consignee part, and the consignee name would be the buyer's name, not the port itself. You just list the port's address over there. There's a retailer, the seller arranges transportation to buyer's warehouse, and buyer arranges transportation to retail stores. Then the buyer's warehouse distribution center is listed as the consignee over here. We come to the certified products part. You see the same sequential number that we assign. 1, 2, 3 just goes designated by assigned by the certification body. There's the order number. It can be the purchase order number, invoice number, any kind of number that you differentiate that purchase, that sales will come over here. You have the article number, or you call it the stock number, the lot number, whatever you do to keep track of your goods inside a facility, it should be listed over here. Number of units, so it can be bales, rolls, whatever unit, name and number. Number of units will come over here. So net shipping weight of that product over here, and supplementary weight. For those who do not know what supplementary weight is, anything that is functionally or to kind of like embellish the product that is not part of the composition will come over here, the weight of that product. It can be buttons, zippers, any kind of embellishments, any kind of like print material that cannot be part of the composition will have a total supplementary weight listed in here. So in that case, a mattress shell is certified, then supports frames foam will not be certified. It will be described as trims or accessories, which will be part of the supplementary weight. Another case, let's say you want to say it's a responsible down is used in a jacket, so the down filling is certified. Then in that case, the weight of the jacket without the down filling will be supplementary weight because it's not part of the composition. Sweater has buttons, which are classified as trim, and supplementary weight is the weight of the buttons in this case. Certified weight of the product is listed over here, and there's a production date. So you may declare your production date over here. Anything else mandatory. Production date is not. It's optional, it's voluntary. If your buyer requires you to declare your production date, then you should do it so over here. That's why we highlighted it in green. Product category and product details together with the raw material that is declared by percentage by weight is directly taken from ASR 213. During your applications, if you are working with USB certification, you have been using this classification since last April. So that will not be any significant change over here. But these TC 3.0 documents are fully harmonized with ASR 213, you should know. Any standards or label grade will be listed over here. GRS, RCS blended, OCS 100, they will all be here per product. So additional info section is pretty important. So I like to go a little slower. We talked about supplementary weight. So any kind of trim that are excluded from the material composition, it is part of the supplementary weight. will be listed over here, like buttons or other product parts that are not included in the composition will be listed under additional information. Another key issue is that this is a very highly unlikely situation in most given cases, but there are cases where a product has more than one claims, which means that it is certified against more than one standards, and these standards are in separate certification bodies. So a applicable case would be some part of the product is certified against GRS and some part of the product is certified against OCS from different certification bodies. So then the client can apply the TC number of the first application and can associate these two transaction certificates together for the same product, same shipment. Whoever issues the first TC can provide the TC number to the second TC, so they are associated. And also what we call technical quality parameters will come over here. You have to declare them according to the product category. So if you look at the items 4, 5, 6, and 7, you will see the PC numbers 33, 34. For applicable cases, like for product category 33 and 34, you have to declare fiber length in millimeters and fiber fineness. So that one of them is cotton. And for yarns, the yarn count and GSM value for fabrics and so on. You can use these product categories to determine from ASR 213, you can look it up and determine if you have to declare the technical quality parameters or not. We'll definitely be requesting them during your TC applications. So last processor information, we will receive the name, the license number, and country of the last processor. But name and license number can be undisclosed, which means that we have to take that data and submit to Textile Exchange servers, but you may choose not to show it on the actual transaction certificate itself. In any given case, the country, the region, the area of the last processor shall be declared. There's a new part, certified components, which we call the extension of part 10, the product certified products. So what you see is the certified product and component number. So what it says is that that's the first component of the first product. What you have to declare: net shipping weight, supplementary weight, certified weight, component name, and material composition of that component, together with the standard label grades and the same additional info that you have to declare for products. So what is a component? So let's take a look at an example. As you said, the components are for final products only, and if there's not all products have components. So there are cases where you will not see box 10A. Let's see the example. So in box 10, you will see a jacket, that's the product, and material composition is inner lining, filling, and outer shell. Those are three components that it has. Okay, so you have three different: GRS, RDS, OCS 100, recycled post-consumer, responsible down, organic cotton. So in box 10A, you have to declare the further details of these components. So you see in the component details section, you have inner lining, filling, and outer shell, and they have their own technical information declared, certified weight, supplementary weight, and net shipping weight declared. So these are for final products. Another example would be a shoe. So the sole of the shoe bottom of the shoe or the upper part of the shoe can be declared as like different components. So box 11 would be the raw material and origin. You declare the raw material code for cotton, for polyester. Recycled content you should also declare origin of the material for recycled content as well as animal fibers. So you declare the raw material codes, and you have the certified weight, total certified weight, and you have the list of countries and areas. So it can be multiple countries, multiple areas, regions. It can be the same country, but the raw material may be a mix from different regions. Then you should list all country region periods over here. Like to remind you again that until July 1st, if there is no original material declared, then it will be aggregated under the code 2058, and there has to be a geographic origin information after July 1st in all transaction certificates, including the secondary scopes. So declarations by seller of certified products, so that's box number 12. That's where you will be declaring if you use a subcontractor for any of the processing of any of the products in that TC or not. You can declare other details of certified products over here, like which subcontractor did you use for which process or which facility. You can declare it here, as long as it's not inaccurate, misleading, not a reference to a brand name, not a reference to a trade name, or if it is not any information that has to be declared in any other part of this transaction certificate. You can have additional declarations in this box. So what's different in GOTS? I mean, the TC template will change together with Textile Exchange, that's the same, but all new information requested will be optional until July 1st, 2022. That's the first key change, first difference. There's no non-certified trader concept in GOTS. So all traders will continue to be certified as usual. That's another key difference. The facility buying on behalf of can be an independent legal entity, which is wholly owned by the certified organization. Also, another difference is that we talked about the 90-day, 180 days rule in Textile Exchange for the earliest shipment date. That is not applicable in GOTS. So same practice as before, up to 6 months, we definitely have to issue as long as there's a valid and full application. And before that, we can choose to do so according to our risk analysis. There's no declaration area for additional organic regulations besides USDA NOP. Technical parameters for fibers are only requested at the first processor level. You can still declare them in the secondary scope TCs, but it's not mandatory. There's no component section that we talked about. So the final products, the nature of the GOTS doesn't have any like multi-component product, so there's no components. Also, you don't have to declare if you use the subcontractor or not in GOTS TCs. So when we look at it, it's a phase in transition, as you've seen, from January 1st to July 1st. Some of the rules apply, some of the rules don't. We provided a little table, which I'm going to show you in the next slide, next couple of slides. And we have to start receiving all the data by April 1st, 2022. As we said, we are going to be sharing the webinar recording and webinar slides with you after this training. Legal name of seller, let's give an example, is we'll start to receive it by January 1st, and we have to start submitting it by January 1st. We have to, it's mandatory to receive this information from you, and it's mandatory to show you in a TC, which is the same in GOTS. And another would be the input TCs. I'm sorry about that. Additional organic farm standards. We'll start receiving them by January 1st, but it's not mandatory to submit that data to Textile Exchange servers until April 1st. It's optional to receive it, optional to disclose it. And it's not applicable in GOTS. Same as the other ones, last processor name, mandatory to receive, optional to show it. We'll start receiving that by January 1st, but we don't, it's not obligatory to submit it until April 1st. That's another key option. It just, if you look at the certified components, you see that it's not applicable for GOTS standards, and it's optional to reveal subcontractor name and outsource processes. So as USB certification, I'd like to give you a couple of short information. We are fully synchronized with D-Trackit. We were one of the first certification bodies to pilot the project with them. And there's going to be an e-Trackit, electronic Trackit, which is a blockchain-based solution, which will be coming over soon. And we are one of the participants for the pilot program as a certification body. And we know that you are going to be dealing with a complex amount of data. So if you like to automate your data submission for TC applications, we have an application programming interface, an API, that you can connect your system, your ERP to. And if you'd like to receive more information, you can contact us at support@usbcertification.com for more information. So I'd like to go over to questions. Yes, we are going to receive these slides, webinar recordings. Raw material origin from Serena Moro. For GOTS, are we talking about origin at the farm level or first certified factory? From first processor to all the way to the final product, you have to declare the origin for all raw materials. In Textile Exchange, after July 1st, 2022, it will be the same, not only for OCS, but also for GRS and RCS as well. So you have to declare country region from your material declaration forms, or wherever certified collectors, concentrators are located, you have to declare them as well. It will be mandatory in July 1st. Until then, all first processors are mandatory from January 1st. And as certification bodies, if we receive a country of origin for raw material, we are bound to forward it to the next transaction certificate. Can you please confirm why 100 days are being reduced to 90 days? Mr. Mohammed, I'm honestly don't know the why of it. You should contact the standards team, team of Textile Exchange. They have standards at textileexchange.org. You can contact them. I'd like to know why as well, if you receive any information. So we don't know where it is cultivated. This cultivation information comes from the farm level scope certificate. So if you're a first processor, then this information has to be received from the farm scope certificate. If it is secondary scope, if you are downstream the supply chain, then don't worry. If you by then all TCs, upcoming TCs to you, raw material wise, will include this information. And if it is not, you can tell your supplier that you cannot accept it, they have to talk. So there will be a course correction upstream. 90 days from when? From the TC application date. So let's say that you applied for a TC on November 1st, then it would be at the beginning of August. That's 90 days, yes, that's 3 months before. So any shipment date that is before August 1st would be subject to risk analysis. So any shipment that is older than May 1st of that year will not be accepted in that case. Yes. Supplementary mention for garments products or denim fabric. I mean, if it's not going to be part of the composition, it is low weight enough, then you can declare. I mean, some of the denim has embellishments on it for certain additional parts that are considered as supplementary weight, accessories or trims. It may or may not be. So you can actually consult your client representative in that case. It's not the ginning factory, Serena Moro, replying Serena Moro here. It's from the cultivation phase. So farm scope certificate includes all the information of where that raw material was farmed from in OCS case. So in ginning facilities, you receive the country of information from the farm scope certificate that your raw material supplier provides. Is there any rule or obligation that a TC will expire in 18 TC? There's no expiration date for a TC. Okay, I think those are all the questions that we received. My name is Ali Ertuğrul, and I'll just type in my email address over here. If you have further questions, you can contact anytime. As we said, the all materials, content, video, and slides will be shared with you. This is the last webinar of 2021, so I'd like to wish you all a happy new year. And we will have a content claim standard webinar coming up, so please stay tuned and subscribe to our email address, to our newsletter from our website, uspcertification.com, and we will inform you about the upcoming grants. Thank you so much. There's one more question from Serena Moro I'd like to reply before I close up. As brands, we still need to check if our clients are certified before B2B traders. I mean, traders can be non-certified traders, so that's a very specific thing. So you can send me an email if you'd like to disclose other details. Happy New Year and see you next year.